Tonight, on the line goes greyhound racing. While millions are being spent upgrading the sport's public image, On the Line uncovers the often brutal reality behind an industry which destroys up to 30,000 dogs a year.
It's a bloody industry.
How many more thousands of greyhounds are going to be smashed up until the animal livers get in on this act? They'll start campaigning against it, and greyhound racing could be banned.
Greyhound racing is big business. 25% of all money wagered in the UK goes on the dogs. That's a massive £2 billion every year. As well as gambling, a night at the dogs is now as much about wining, dining and corporate hospitality as it is about the racing. Almost 200 miles away in Selby in Yorkshire, Karen Schultz looks after 80 abandoned greyhounds. Her priority is not return on financial investment, it's simply keeping her animals and the refuge alive. Karen's one of a growing number of people inside and outside the sport, concerned at the treatment of greyhounds before, during and after their racing careers.
I would like more people to realise what happens to the dogs. You know, they all cheer and jeer them on, and then when they're not fast enough, they won't give them a second look.
What happens to the ones that aren't fast enough?
Well, they're either put to sleep, or they're lucky enough to have good owners, or they'll have a different fate.
Yeah, well, obviously every sport has pressure groups who worry about different aspects of the sport, whether it's rugby, cricket, football. I mean, there are people around who possibly are worried about the welfare of greyhounds. Unfounded, in my opinion, you know.
However, On the Line's investigations into greyhound racing raise serious questions about the ethics of a sport generating billions of pounds that is based on the exploitation of animals. Those questions begin the moment these animals are born. Most greyhounds are bred in Ireland. Irish dogs make up 90% of runners on British tracks. 25,000 greyhounds are registered with the Irish racing authorities every year, and around 9,000 of those are exported to the UK. But wherever they're bred, not all greyhound puppies make it to the track. At an early age, culling of the litters starts, as Sally Main discovered when working for a top-flight Midlands trainer.
Most of the litters are between 6 and 10. The most we ever had where I worked was about 11.
What happens to the dogs that don't make the track?
They tend to be put down anyway. They don't try and find homes for the youngsters, the ones that haven't served them.
Good girl.
Estimates vary, but generally in Ireland, only 2/3 of puppies make the grade. Although 25,000 are registered every year, it's feared many thousands are put down before they're 12 months old. The reason is simple. The greyhound is a commercial animal. It costs around £2,000 a year to kennel and feed. If it's not fast enough, it costs only £20 to have it humanely destroyed.
The majority of greyhound owners are in it for the money. And if a greyhound doesn't look like producing something that's going to be economically possible to show profit, then it's discarded.
Ironically, the massive overbreeding that produces this large number of discarded dogs is being subsidised by the European community. £1 million has been made available to support and encourage greyhound breeding in Ireland. For those greyhounds that do make the track, the serious business of training starts. They have to be schooled and taught to chase the mechanical hare. David Hayward was a successful British trainer. He had more than 400 winners before his licence was suspended in 1991.
Basically, the dog has no life. He spends most of his time in the kennels and then backwards and forwards to the stadium. The dog consistently chases a false hare at the stadium, and they do tend to become bored with chasing that. It's widely known that if you give a dog a live animal to kill, on occasion I've heard of cats being used, this makes the dog more keener and makes it perform better. It's because they've had the taste of blood.
These unique pictures were taken by an on-the-line hidden camera in Ireland. The use of live bait, in this case rabbits, is against the law in Ireland and the UK and is in fact an imprisonable offence. Nevertheless, blooding is a common training technique, and in rural areas in Ireland, the use of live lures is an open secret.
The 3 plays £1, £70. Number 4 plays £1 and £8. Forecast combination 3, 4, £9, £62. Trio combination 3, 4, 1, £11, £29.
For the greyhound, racing itself is frequently a painful and crippling business. Paddy Sweeney is one of the sport's most experienced and respected vets.
On average, 10% of all runners on every track tonight are carrying injuries before they start. They've got an injured toe, torn muscle, a strained tendon, or perhaps an arthritic joint. 10% have an injury starting off. Well, the most common site of injury, of course, is in the foot, because the foot is the first point of contact with the ground. When a greyhound is running around these acute turns, that foot has got to be twisted, and you get this rotary force, and that's what causes the injury. How many greyhounds have been smashed up in the last 67 years? In all those years, 4,000 acute injuries, we'll say, 3 times that of non-acute or chronic injuries. So we put it down at, we'll say, 12,000 greyhounds a year. 12 times 67, you tell me how much that is. 12 times 67.
You're talking close on 1 million dogs.
Have been smashed up, yes.
We're seeing the equivalent of sort of 360,000 dog units, if you like, racing around each year. And there is actually quite a small rate of injury. So I don't think things can be that bad, really.
How many more thousands of greyhounds are going to be smashed up until the animal libers get in on this act? The League Against Cruel Sports, they haven't had a look at greyhound racing yet. What are they doing? They could spend £1 million a year on a campaign against greyhound racing. And I would think that that will happen, as sure as my name is Paddy Sweeney, and it might even happen in my lifetime.
While it may seem impractical to run injured dogs, it can make good financial sense.
You're paid to supply dogs to a certain stadium. You're attached to that stadium, and you have to supply a certain amount of dogs to make up the full card for the full meeting.
In order to run with an injury, a dog has to be administered a prescribed painkiller.
There's ways and means of obtaining these on the black market. They're widely available, at a cost, of course.
You do realise that this cortisone thing is, you know, you're only, if you're running lame dogs with that in them, they're buggered after. It's only covering up the injuries for the time.
Yeah, what I'll do is I'll offload half of the cortisone anyway. I'll keep some myself. Look, order me that then. Order me them 10, because they'll last me a long time with them 10 cortisone.
Yeah, well, I'll try and get you half a dozen, you know. Yeah. I'll try and screw it.
Well, if you get me 6 of them, I could do with 6 penicillin as well.
Right. I'll see what I can do.
Okay.
Okay,
and I'll come back to you, what, next week?
Yeah.
Next week?
All right.
Say next Wednesday,
yeah?
Okay, thanks a lot, Alan.
Okay.
See you later. Bye.
When you're dealing with a massive industry with so much betting on it like greyhound racing, people are I'm afraid, always going to try and cheat. It's our job to keep the cheats out of the sport and staying on top of some of the things that they might like to try. And we're dealing with a tiny, tiny minority here. Is difficult, but we do our best.
To my knowledge, I've heard of amphetamines being used, cocaine, dexedrine. Angel dust is now widely used. Anabolics are used commonly to build a muscle on a dog. I would believe they use the anabolics to build the muscles up to make the dog basically go faster. Obviously, the more muscle you've got, the more you can lift, the faster you can go.
David Hayward claims it's the financial pressures that made him defraud the gambling public and lay himself open to charges of conspiracy involving prison sentences of up to 10 years.
I've been offered money by a bookmaker to slow a dog. If the dog lost, I would have been paid twice as much for losing as I would have gained in the dog winning.
And how much would that be? What sort of figures are we talking here?
If the dog won, we would win £20 off the stadium. If the dog lost, the bookmaker would pay you £40.
A greyhound can live for about 14 years, but its racing career ends early. And that's where the problem of what to do with these thousands of retiring young dogs really starts.
More times than we would like to care about, we're asked to humanely destroy animals. Our job is trying to rehome as many animals as possible, to educate our people on breeding animals and overbreeding. The more animals that are bred, obviously the more is going to come onto us and the more difficult we find to rehome those animals. We have come across several cases whereby owners have got someone else to dispose of an animal for them. On a number of times we have found animals which have been clubbed to death, the ears cut off and dumped either on waste ground somewhere where it's not going to be found too easily, or dumped in the foil. Household items and cleaners have been used to inject animals. Obviously that must be very stressful and very painful on a dog.
There are other fates that may befall the racing greyhound when its short career is over.
The Vivisection will pay the man who delivers the dogs about £20 a dog, I believe the figure is.
Racing greyhounds are considered ideal for vivisection, as these pictures from America show. They have a cardiovascular system similar to a human being. In 1992, 55 greyhounds were used for vivisection in the UK. Escaping the surgeon's knife may mean, for around 400 dogs a year, export to Spain, where a dog that normally would have been retired in Britain can race on into its later years. Concern over poor conditions there led to an inquiry by the World Greyhound Federation in 1992.
Spain are members of the World Greyhound Racing Federation. A team from that federation that did include people from the NGRC went over there and made a series of recommendations about all aspects of Spanish greyhound racing, and those recommendations have been implemented. So it's a situation that does need monitoring, that still needs very careful consideration, but it's a situation that I believe is improving all the time.
Have you been in the kennels?
Personally, no.
Using a hidden camera on the line gained access to the racetrack kennels in Valencia. The kennels are heavily guarded to keep out intruders. The conditions we found show that the WGRF's recommendations have not been implemented. For instance, the WGRF recommended cages be provided in the van used to transport greyhounds between the home kennels and the stadium. This has not been done. They recommended that bedding be provided in the kennels. This also has not been implemented. The Spanish Greyhound Federation promised the WGRF in writing to implement all recommendations with a re-inspection before the 30th of June 1992. This re-inspection didn't happen. In Valencia, we found the dogs in miserable conditions. They're kept in 1 metre square cages for up to 23 hours a day. Many are severely underweight, and dogs even run loose in the kennels, unmuzzled, searching for scraps of food. They're let loose together in the compound for half an hour while the kennels are hosed, leading to frequent fights and subsequent injuries like infected bites. Kennel hands control the dogs with rubber hoses. On the Line can find no basis for the industry's estimate that only 500 dogs are put down every year. In the UK and Ireland, 30,000 dogs are registered every year and 30,000 retire. Here in Londonderry, this is just one of almost 200 greyhounds that will be put down in this small city alone this year. The disappearance of these 30,000 greyhounds every year and the abuse of dogs while racing is casting a shadow over the sport as an entertainment industry.
They are not just entertainment, they're living creatures. Something has got to be done. The states we've picked them up in, if we picked a cruelty case up and went to one of these Christmas do's and took the dog with us, do you think they'd enjoy it then? But I just don't think they realise.
Well, they put me out on as well.
Pictures like these of mass greyhound graves in Florida and Arizona shocked and horrified American TV audiences last year. It emerged that 50,000 racing greyhounds were being disposed of in the United States every year simply because they couldn't race and weren't therefore economically viable. The state of Maine acted promptly. From January 1993, greyhound racing was banned on the grounds that it's a cruel sport.
They give all, and nobody gives to them.